Welcome to this week's Let's Talk Paranormal, and we have Michael Horn back in the studio for part 2 of our continuing show about Billy Meier. Now, Billy was given predictions and prophecies by the Plejaren people that he had met, and today Michael is going to be explaining exactly what those prophecies and predictions were all about. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you, Tracy.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Now, these predictions go back as far as 1956, I believe.
That's correct. There's information, let's, just for the benefit of clarifying it, prophecies and predictions are two separate things, though they may sometimes converge.
Right.
A prophecy is a likely outcome of something based on the existing causes that have been set in motion, while predictions are set in stone. They're usually cosmic events that cannot be altered, or they could be prophecies that have gone too far to also be altered, so they have turned into predictions. And maybe one way you can think about that for your viewers, and I know you've got a lot of listeners as well, just imagine that this is a pendulum here, and that I take it and I push on it, and it's going to go out. Right. And at a certain point, it's going to come back. And everything that we are involved with, all of our thoughts and our actions, everything individually and collectively has to do with this law of cause and effect. Whereas we may often think that things are totally unrelated, we can't understand why a thing happened to us, happened to our country, whatever. Very often, if we will take a look, we'll learn from it, and we're a little more careful about what we set in motion. Put that there.
Right, because everything is connected.
All the time.
Right. Okay. Now, Billy was given these prophecies and predictions by two of the extraterrestrials in particular, Ptah and Semyazi.
And also by Quetzal, another male who has been, I think he was called the base commander for the Plejaren people on Earth up until the time that they removed their bases from the planet, in 1995, I think it was. And so he and Semyazi were actually the people who gave him the most amount of what you'd call prophetic or predictive information. And to answer the question you'd asked just a little bit ago, it was usually given in the form of conversations. It wasn't always given as a prophecy that this, here are the prophecies. Though that is in the case, and there's some astounding ones that I'm sure we'll talk about, but very often it was simply a matter of they would tell him about things before they happened. Right. In the course of their conversation. And scientific information or world events, earthquakes, wars, assassinations, invasions, diseases, you name it, they were telling him about it in the course of things. So when I went back into the contact reports and started to look and see if those things happened and did searches on the internet, I found that indeed all of these events occurred, the discoveries, the scientific things, and as far as I could tell, Billy was the first person to ever publish it.
Now, when you say that Billy was told these things, did he have a conversation, a verbal conversation, or was it telepathic?
Well, most of these things took place during, actually probably all of the prophecy was transmitted during his face-to-face meetings with the Plejaren. The telepathic aspects, though there are some things that were strictly telepathic in terms of the communication, that wasn't generally where that type of information was conveyed. He would be meeting with them either in their ships or in nature somewhere or in his own office or where he lived, and they would have the conversations, which later on he would, with one hand, type out and transcribe, keeping records from the beginning of, I think it was January 28th or something in 1975. So we have a very, very, very good record of when he received information and when things that were mentioned actually occurred, and we could compare.
Now, obviously, once again, this is going to sound very skeptical to our audience listening to the show today. Some people might just put it out there, Michael, Billy Meier must be a psychic. He must be having psychic abilities.
Well,
what do you say to that?
Yeah, I'd say that psychic abilities are, a debatable thing. I mean, even though probably many of us agree that those things exist, Billy Meier would have to be a world-class, genius-level photographer, filmmaker, videographer, special effects person, digital effects person, sound engineer, sound recording specialist, a metallurgist, physicist, and a psychic, on top of everything else, a laundry list of abilities. Or the simple answer is He's telling the truth. He's a contactee. That is a simpler and more easy to, conclusion to come to, because how can you attribute to this man, this one-armed man, all of these things? These things can't be separated away. They're all part of this case. And the prophecies, and when you start to get to the meat of the matter, it isn't about extraterrestrials. It isn't about UFOs. Oh, sure, it's in there, and our previous history is in there, and all these connections. It's really about setting up a base of credibility through giving him information prior to its occurring, so that we would look at the information that they would present for these times, excuse me, and the near future, and much of that information actually is quite ancient. And that's where it gets even stranger. They have been the keepers of prophecies that were made sometimes thousands of years ago that pertain to these times.
Wow. What was the first prophecy that Billy was given?
Well, I'll put it in terms, it was given to him in 1956. It was explained to him that atomic explosions from bombs and, obviously tested or dropped, created disturbances to the magnetic field, damaged the ozone, would produce genetic damages and mutations and things like that. That was the first time they told him about it. In 75, they went into more detail on that and the connection to bromine gases and the destruction of the ozone, more on the atomic explosion connection. And, excuse me, on those specifics, I couldn't find any actual validation on that prior to 1988. So the main thing here is it's also possible. I had some skeptic who did research, and on some of the things he said, well, I found some earlier dates. Yeah, but they were still after Meier was given the information or published it. So it's very possible that I missed something earlier, but in every case so far, Meier still comes up as the original source of the information.
Right. What are scientists saying about these predictions and prophecies?
Well, it's hard to get scientists with their monumental egos, many of them, to even look at the case because they harbor either consciously or otherwise the belief, if it's really true, I'd know about it. If it's really true, it would be me or one of my contemporaries, which is, of course, one of the obstacles to it having been them. So there have only been a few scientists who've truly, publicly, given credence to the case. Let's face it, there are many, many people, excuse me, in the scientific or military levels that know the truth of the case. I've had a little bit of interaction with one or two scientists, and one of the scientists actually had to admit that Meier was right on his information prior to its being officially discovered.
Because every prophecy and prediction has happened, right?
Well, every one that has happened that I've been able to check out, Meier, again, turns out to be the earliest known person. Some of them have not yet occurred, and I'm only hoping to make them wrong, that they do not occur.
Right.
We are looking at some things that are of just enormously unpleasant consequence, and we're being warned, and we've been warned. Part of the purpose of these contacts, one of the, as I say, a main purpose, has been to help us assure our future survival.
Right.
We're not doing well, and they're not betting on us pulling it off, I'll just tell you.
Why would they be concerned? I mean, why would they even care?
Well, because first of all, we're human life forms. They're human life forms. Their forefathers, in many cases, were our own. Their forefathers, in many cases, set in motion the major religions and the consequences of that we still are reeling from today. Sorry to offend anybody. But the illogic, the violence, things that were set in motion by ETs who represented themselves as the creators of the universe. Right. And if people can honestly read holy books and actually see what these beings were doing and how they were leading people into enormous war and genocide and destruction, and somehow being called gods of love and mercy, we would wake up to why they're trying to get us to get out of the cultic thinking and to become creational and logical.
And it seems that humankind is just stuck in a box, and we can't seem to get out the box. We don't want to come out the box to learn and go forward with it.
Well, it's another reason why, when you look at the way in which the case is done, like you've said before last week, I think, why didn't they make more of a demonstration this way or that way? Look, we're talking about this. Most people that are going to hear about this, most people, either have not heard about it before or are going to be sitting there going, So they know that humankind, stuck in the box, can't be presented straight on with a couple realities. Number one, we're not alone in the universe. Number two, we are nowhere near the most evolved life forms in the universe. We are primitive. We are barbaric. We are aggressive beyond reason. And we have to evolve and wake up, because in our destiny, in our future, eventually when we get through these times, we will either get through them kicking and screaming and destroying a good portion of our world, or we will minimize that. But eventually we would become a space-traveling race, and we will not be permitted by other races to bring our insanity and our aggression and our war into space. There are, according to the Plejarens, literally millions of other human life forms, and some that are not quite, space-traveling already. The real history of life in this universe goes back farther than our scientists even know that the universe has been here.
Do the Plejarens give us a scenario just to say, you know, one day you're going to be living like the whole concept of Star Trek amongst extraterrestrials?
To a good degree, they have said that that type of future does await us. We are going to, in several thousand years from now, actually venture back into the star system in which our forefathers were actually generated or procreated in the star system of Sirius. And we will, at that point, not be people who are laden with the type of aggression we have now, not with the short lifespans, but the multi-hundred to 1,000-year lifespans that the extraterrestrials have. Some races have even longer lifespans. There's just so much that goes on in this universe, and the Plejaren don't know all of it either, and they have people that are more advanced than they are, from whom they take advice. So this isn't about super beings and know-it-alls. They have made their own fair share of mistakes, but yet they come from an experience of far greater knowledge, wisdom, and understanding than we have.
Right, and that's why they feel, one of the reasons why they can come and want to help us.
It is one of the reasons.
Let's take a look at some of the Plejaren's manner of prophesizing and predicting. Just talk us through this, Michael.
Sure. The Plejaren use very advanced computer calculations. They work with numerical values with what they call the true Kabbalah. We don't have access to the true Kabbalah for the most part. There is a real system of numerical values and calculations that they rely on. They have computers, obviously, that are look, they're 5,000, 8,000 years ahead of us technologically. Think of what we accomplished in 50 years with computers. Multiply that times 100 or whatever, or 10 or 100. And they also have time travel technology. They're ships that can move forward and backward in time. And they have people among them who do have these highly developed psychic abilities. The prophets of old in our world had certain, some of them had certain psychic clairvoyant abilities, and they were also in some cases interacting consciously or otherwise with extraterrestrials.
So even though they're so advanced, they still need a computer?
Well, yes, they have abilities that exceed ours in terms of mental abilities, but their computers, they have technologies that they utilize for everything from traveling in time or space to learning a language in 30 days to doing this or doing that, and they use material and spiritual telepathy. It's a fact of life for them. They trained Meier to be able to communicate telepathically. It's the birthright of humans. We're just a ways away from it ourselves right now.
How has Billy Meier accepted all of this?
Well, let's remember that he started at 5 years of age. He had some difficulties with the reality. He had the good counsel of the the priest, Father Zimmerman. So with that, coupled with a couple other people who understood and knew and supported him, and the extraterrestrials and their tutoring, this has been his life. He can be in the presence of these people. He can work with them. He can and does interact with them. We would not be able to be close to these people unless they were protecting themselves and us from their vibrations. It's not that far-fetched. We have people on our own planet that we can't be around. We'd feel threatened.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, and these people are far more advanced. It's obvious. We can't do it.
Yeah, we're not to that level.
Not. They would provoke great violent feelings and upset us.
Right. Let's take a look at some of the Plejaren concerns. atmospheric disturbances and climate changes.
Sure, that's, as I said in that original information about the A-bomb testing, that's exactly a lot of it right there. They had talked about the movement of the North Pole was going to be thrown off, the orbit of the Earth, the rotation, the behavior of the planet, so many things just from our prematurely discovering atomic energy, and of course, as we would, turning it into a weapon.
And some of the events that have actually happened that Meier listed in his report. Just talk us through this, Michael.
Sure. He was told in October, I think it was October 19th, 1978, in his 115th contact, he was given very specific information that he was told to not publish until after the events transpired. I'll just, by way of explaining this. Accidentally, he turned this information over to the lead investigator, Wendell Stevens. When Stevens came back to America and saw what he had, he brought in two other people, one another retired military man and another man who was the director of a planetarium in Tucson, Arizona. They read it, they witnessed it, and they put it away because they knew that Meier wasn't supposed to have done this. It was an accident. He authorized somebody to print up stuff for him. You have the Jonestown Massacre, the overthrow of the Shah of Iran, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the Chinese invasion of North Vietnam, the death of Tito, Mount St. Helens eruption, the abdication of the Queen of Holland, the death of Indira Gandhi, the terrorist attack on the Iranian embassy in London, and the Iranian hostage crisis. And they gave him details about these things, how many people would be involved, how many people would be killed. And he was told, no, these things are predictions. They are going to occur. Things have been set in motion, and it will fulfill itself this way.
And it did fulfill itself.
Right down to the dates and everything else and the details. That's only a small number of the ones for which this is true.
How would we benefit from knowing all of this? Because these are obviously, heads of people in state, government, or whatever. How can we benefit?
We wouldn't apparently have benefited because had these things been known prior to happening, we would have tried to stop them. Predictions you don't mess with, which of course we would try to stop a terrorist attack or something like that if we knew it specifically was coming. But when you interfere with a predicted event where the pendulum has swung so far out that it must come back, then you only make it worse. So in the case of prophecies, we're encouraged to try to alter our thinking, alter our behavior. And these days, with what goes down in our world now, we are being encouraged globally to act in every country, especially in the major developed countries, and specifically to remove from power the people that are otherwise going to drive our world into a third world war. That's in the prophecies. It's not yet a prediction.
Wow. If our viewers at home wanted to see more information about all of this, where could they go?
Well, they could go to my website because I've listed lots of this stuff for free. They can just read and do their own research and read the documentation, look at photos, check out the movie clips, listen to the sound. With the sound recordings have never been duplicated either. They're irreproducible still. They could satisfy themselves this way. They can, obtain whatever materials they need. And on the website, I've put the specific suggestions that the Plejaren have made for us, the people, what they wish for the people of Earth, how we might change our individual and collective thoughts and actions to reroute our world down a more positive path.
To help us.
Help us help ourselves.
Right.
These are guidelines that are eternally true for humans developing anywhere. We are just in the wrong frame of reference. We are stuck in politics, we're stuck in religions, and they're saying, hey, either get unstuck or you lose about 2/3 of your planet.
Wow. Wow. Something that was brought recent in the news, Comet Tutatis. Right. And Meier predicted this, well, he didn't predict it, but the Plejarens in 1978.
Actually, Meier had predicted this. To the best of my knowledge, he said that it would be discovered at the end of the 80s, early 90s, and it would be called Tutatis. This is something he wrote in 78, and of course in 89, the French astronomers who discovered it named it Tutatis. Meier said it's going to come close to Earth in 2004 and possibly threaten us. It actually passes us in September 29th or so of this year of 2004. But when I spoke with Meier last week, he had just met with this man, Ptah, leader of the race, the Plejaren, and they said this will only come within about 1 million miles now of the Earth, and it will not damage your planet. excuse me, certainly nothing compared to like hitting somewhere on the planet.
Right.
There is a deep impact scenario that they have said is a prediction, and we cannot avoid it, and they won't tell us when it's coming.
Right. Would it be of help if they did tell us?
Probably not.
Wow.
It would just cause everybody to panic.
Yeah,
so you might as well say, well, I don't believe it, and move on, or you know, what have you.
Just see what happens.
We have other things that are far more pressing that they have specified, and I think we need to pay attention.
Right. Now, you were in Switzerland about a week ago, Michael.
That's right.
And you did the trip, and Billy met up with one of the extraterrestrials, Ptah. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us what happened in that meeting?
Well,
did you get to meet Ptah?
No, and nobody's going to meet these ETs except Billy. It's just one of the ground rules, and
see, we want to know why.
Well,
Michael.
for many reasons. One, Billy has been tutored and prepared for this since he was a child. We know already that we can't handle the frequency of these people, or we could say that's what's been said in this case. If one person gets to meet Ptah, you create jealousy among all those who don't, or they get to meet any of these beings. All the people who've worked around Billy and known him for 25 or 30 years, suddenly they got to line up and, you know, see the ET. I mean, it's like just on a practical basis of keeping it, here's one person, here's what we have to say. This isn't a personality game. It's not about getting excited about us. We're just people, hard as it may be to believe, or accept, would be a better word. So you're not going to get that.
Could they not do it on a grand scale?
They could, but they're not going to.
Are they never going to do this?
We'll hear from them again in about 700 years. Them. There'll be other ETs involved in the meantime who are not at that particular level, but are still farther enough advanced to us. But I think you just asked about Billy having a meeting with Ptah. I believe it was on Thursday. I think that was May 6th. I'm like a little fuzzy, but I had come. A man had given me a videotape that he asked me to show to Billy that show purported UFOs that he's seemingly involved with or believes he is up in Washington State.
And are you allowed to say who this man is?
It's fine with me. I mean, James Gilliland. And I have not yet looked at the whole tape. I saw parts of it after. I gave it to Billy on Wednesday. Billy had a meeting with this man, Ptah, and they sat and watched the video. That's what Billy said. The next day, Billy said, you know, come here, I'm going to tell you. I said, what? He says, Ptah and I watched this video. I said, you're kidding. He says, no. He said, right here, so sit down. I'm going to go over a couple quick things with you. And I said, well, okay. And he said, first of all, he shows the UFOs, and he says, these are not extraterrestrial. These are American secret fighters, anti-gravity craft developed at Area 51. This is what the majority, not all, excuse me, the majority of sightings in America are these U.S. military fighter craft. And they allowed people to think this is all extraterrestrial and stuff. And then he explained some of the things that I won't say during the program regarding other things from James. But it seemed to be what he was saying is America's planning for more and bigger wars, and that's what they're building these for.
Really?
So, yeah, and that's what he was told, and then we talked about a few other things that were on the video.
James Gilliland may not be happy to hear that, but you know, if you...
Well, I am only reporting what I was told. I don't know if he has trouble with that or doesn't. If it's true, it's true. If it isn't, it isn't.
What are some of the predictions that we have to look forward to?
Well,
are there any we have to look forward to?
You know, prophecies and predictions usually are forewarnings of negative events because you don't have to be forewarned about good things. So they try to illuminate what are the negative signposts that you are going to encounter. And for instance, I don't know, you know, in 1987, in a prophecy called the Enoch Prophecies, which are in the new book, they're published, they forewarned of the destruction of the World Trade Center by terrorism. Well, you sure that's really from then? Well, okay, that's just one thing in there. They then said the United States will launch a series of worldwide wars. I picked up this document, I believe it was 2002, before we'd launched Iraq for sure, and I think either just prior to Afghanistan or just afterwards. But it contains a scenario of all the military machinations and movements of the countries on this planet. Who's going to invade whom and what's going to happen. And frankly, they said that the worst damage will eventually come to the United States of America because it is generating through its military policies enormous hatred against itself. Now that's a document reportedly from '87. I think the events of any given day show that there's a lot of that perception in the world. It's, you know, we've not become a beloved nation. We've squandered an opportunity. and we have allowed the least wise people we could ever hope to find to assume positions of so-called leadership, and they have specifically said that unless these specific people and the policies of this country, the policies of Britain, Germany, other places, not just us, but I live in America, unless the people wake up and take back the power and remove these people and alter these policies between 2006 and 2011 or 12,
right,
we get the Third World War. And that it would be generated to a large degree by the actions of the American administration and the policies of our country, which certainly don't represent the thinking and thoughts of many good Americans or other people. But that's, and they've said it for a long time. Actually, some of the prophecies about this go back, were first presented to Billy in 1981. And hey, they have also said France is going to basically succumb to Islamic fundamentalism from within. It will then be invaded by the... I mean, this is full of all sorts of, you know, unpleasant stuff, but so far their track record is too good to ignore the warnings.
Right.
It's not about... we should sit there and go doom and gloom.
And shock horror, Britain is going to fall, apparently.
So they say. So they say. In many places, Russia is going to go on a move in China. But by voicing this now, by bringing it to the attention of people around the world, we can alter some of these. I'm here to make those prophecies wrong. Not to perpetuate doom and gloom. And a lot of people say, oh, this is anti-American. I say, wait a minute. If I'm walking down the street late at night because I can't sleep, I'm walking through your neighborhood and you've got a nice house and you're upstairs in your bedroom and downstairs there's a fire, do you want me to just walk by quietly and not disturb your bliss while the fire rages? Or do you want me to scream like heck and say, wake up, and then decide whether you want to put the fire out in your house? We have a fire in our house. And if we don't put this one out, the words they have used for America are devastation, destruction, and annihilation on a scale never before experienced on the planet. I don't want to see that.
Those are not good words, are they?
They're not good words, and we won't be alone in it. But this is... we come down to the meat of the matter. It's not about fuzzy, warm little ETs here to save us from ourselves, space brothers, and all of the rest of the stuff. It's about us and assuring our future survival so we become the full, capable, long-lived humans that we are intended to be.
Right. So, folks, take heed of what Michael's explaining to us today, what Billy's, had passed on to him. Hopefully we can make this world a better place. And
we have specific things you can do, and it's free. You don't have to join any groups or anything. Just wake up.
Right. Your website, once again, Michael, is?
Those three little W's with the dot, theyfly.com. Theyfly.com.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there's a DVD here, The Meier Contacts, The Key to Our Future Survival. Check that out on the website of Michael, and even on my website, letstalkparanormal.com. You can find all the information there too. And until next time, keep your eyes to the skies. Bye-bye.